All right, today we're going to dive into Solana, take a look at the ecosystem, and also take a look at whether or not Solana is the asset that maybe this is a good time to look at. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into TechPath. As many of you guys know, as the markets are a bit volatile right now, especially around Bitcoin and ETH leading out the markets, in a downtrend, some of the assets that we are tracking are starting to look pretty good, because in many cases when we see this much of a fall off in the traditional blue chip crypto market, typically some of the altcoins will start to also react in the same method. Now the big question is always, hey Paul, is this a good time to jump into these? Remember guys, when we do these market movers, the concept is real simple. We're going to give you a whole bunch of stories. We're going to give you some angles on this, insights that we've done based on our own research, and then of course apply some of our own data. Provide that to you guys, and not investment advice, but hopefully this gives you some good research points to get moving forward. But the question is always asked, when is the right time to get into some of these assets? And if you look at Solana right now, I'll just jump over here to this news on Okay Bears. With the ecosystem of NFTs exploding over the past several months, we've looked at Solana many times around NFTs and what that might look like. And this is a good example of one really kind of breaking ranks right here with Okay Bears breaking records, earning 18 million in sales in a day. And if you look at kind of what is happening over on OpenSea, #1 in OpenSea 24-hour ranking, Solana project has topped the OpenSea's market. And this, again, this is pretty impressive. You can also check it out over here on Magic Eden, just to get a look of it. Look at the volume right there. Nice volume. Floor price at 56 too. Wow, these bears are holding. So my point is that the ecosystem continues to expand within Solana itself. NFTs, I think, and of course, as we see more and more blockchain usage of Solana, the capacity for its growth is going to get even more interesting and even more valuable when you look at the overall. Now, there are some other competitors out there that do get right there in the mix with Solana. And of course, you know them. It's the likes of AVAX, and there's a handful of others that would probably jump in there and compete with Solana on a potential. Many people would probably point to Cardano. There's just an opportunity here, I think, though, with Solana because of the ecosystem itself. And if you look at the rest of what's happening within Solana, one of the big questions has always been its development issues. And as we all know, it's had several breaches. We've had slowdowns, congestion, all these kind of scenarios. This right here is a good example, though, of the fact that they are really pushing it when it comes to the developers. So the GitHub submissions essentially is the developers that are working on. I like that little visual there. Tons of people working on that house. And the idea is pretty simple. After peaking at about 3 months ago, the development rate has now calmed down mildly, but at 408 submissions per day, the team behind Solana is clearly looking at consistently or constantly improving the asset. The fact that we're seeing this many submissions on GitHub for them, which is basically the development, think of that as the water cooler for all the code and the patches and the modifications that are being made to the blockchain for Solana. All that's happening at 408 per day. That is a heavy translation into there's a lot of development going on in Solana. Now, granted, there needs to be, because of the fact that Solana is being used for so many different applications. If you look at just what's happening with Solana Pay, bringing Solana Pay to more merchants without any extra configuration. This is coming over from Flexa. And there's a lot happening with Flexa and AMP around this. We'll probably do a video on this. If you've not had a chance to maybe check out our previous video with AMP and the Flexa team, check that video out, because there's some big moves happening there. And I don't want to get in too far, but the point that they're connected with Solana and the integration within the Solana blockchain, this is a big thing. The other one that, of course, is the big news of the week has been really the big news of the last 3 weeks has been Stepn. And it's the move to earn category leader right now. Stepn, again, steps up the game with over 17%. This is in the intraday rally that they just had. Tons of movement on this one. You can kind of see what is happening here on sentiment. Let me kind of show you here. Most altcoins still down 10%, minus 10% over the past week, minus 20 on the month. But the top 100 largest crypto assets right now are being led out by GMT. And I think as we see more and more Solana projects rolling out like this, now Stepn is an unusual project because of its uniqueness in terms of first of all, the NFT component and the move to earn, concept behind the gamification, I guess, of putting people's activity into a blockchain model, and what they've done with OpenSea now, welcoming Stepn official community and another Solana project now available on OpenSea. So you'll be able to get to those sneakers over on OpenSea as well. And not only that, it's also trading now on Coinbase. So you've got a big pump with GMT and GST, that's their governance token, on Coinbase. Obviously with OpenSea, big news for Solana. Again, just another big project really kind of moving. And if you look at the milestone that has been achieved right here, this is pretty impressive. User activity. Look at this user activity for Stepn. Unbelievable. Going up to almost 1.7 million in 30 days. So nice job for them, but I think it does showcase the ability of what Solana is going to be able to do from a dApp developers sense and from their own point of view. And you think about the developers that are out there, and you look at the amount of concepts and innovation that is occurring right now. As I've said many times, this is a gold rush when it comes to what's happening in the crypto space and in Web3 and blockchain development. There are so many solutions that now have a new model that can be utilized that used to be where Web 2 and obviously Web 1 could never achieve. Web 2, though we've attempted a lot of interesting things, the fact that we've got a decentralized ledger and blockchain technology that has really kind of opened up a framework of thinking now that is changing the game on a lot of different areas, including some of the biggest areas that we've known for all of history, and that is banking. And if you look at this story right here, Solana is now getting uncollateralized borrowing. This is happening through Maple. So Maple, Solana is now live. This is the biggest takeaway on expansion of the uncollateralized borrowing. Can finally happen on Solana ecosystem. And Maple essentially is going to be, think of it as a Web3 bank. And I think that's something that we will see more and more of these. And this is a question that I ask a lot of people that come on our show that are CEOs in the financial, the DeFi side, even banks that have come on our show, is to understand really what the future of banking is going to look like. Is it going to be the regional banks? Is it going to be a whole new era of banks that are moving into the Web3? I kind of lean into the fact that we're going to see a new class of banks. And with seeing a new class of banks, guess what? They're going to need a blockchain to run on. And there's going to be only a handful of projects out there that you could lean into. And I think Solana will definitely be one of them. Now, this is their Twitter post, Maple Solana now live, partnering with X Margin Trading, Circle Pay, of course, we all know that, CoinShares also, and Solana natives. And they're going to start the $45 million to issue uncollateralized to the thriving ecosystem within Solana. So I like this right here. By end of year, they're going to grow this pool to 300 million and issue 1 billion in loans through Maple Solana. That's just going to absolutely explode. I think we're going to continue to see those kinds of scenarios. All right, so I want to thank our sponsors today, and that, of course, is FTX. If you guys are looking to trade and you want to do it in a way in which you save a ton of money, they have some of the best rates for traders out there. A lot of other things are happening with FTX as well, and that, of course, is their NFT marketplace and a ton of access when you're looking at building a portfolio and you want to look at someone to build it on. FTX is definitely one of the places for you guys to go. Make sure and check out the link below to get access to some of the discounts for FTX. Help the channel out. Now, one thing that we have been doing, and if you're not tracking our CPI, one thing I would do is make sure and visit our Crypto Power Index. It is something that it's a service that we provide that breaks down sentiment. We do it 3 times a week. We look at 15 different assets, and I'll show you the assets that we look at for top cryptos. These are going to be growing as well. We also do our rankings, which is our top 30 on both altcoins right here and also on Metaverse. But Individually, once we put a token into the index, then it gets ongoing tracking with both sentiment and amplification. If you're watching our show, you know we drop sentiment and amp a lot on analysis, but we usually do it every 1 to 2 weeks or when we do a project update. With the CPI, you actually get it 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we are working in the roadmap to get that to a daily update. But Solana, this is kind of interesting right here, is the fact that this is one of the few tokens that is actually holding on amplification and sentiment, where if you look at even projects like Luna, let's kind of just compare this to Luna a little bit. Let's go down here to Luna. You can see Luna, even though Luna very strong, sliding just slightly. And above that one, you've got XRP, of course, sliding significantly. But Solana holding while the overall market is still trending down. So this is an indicator, and of course we have seen some movement on Solana slightly, but even more so, I think it's been some of the ecosystem that's been around it. Obviously the star child, I think, with Stepn over the last couple of weeks has pretty much kind of put Solana at the front in understanding what's happening out there. If you look at the ecosystem on Solana, discovering the projects that are really rolling out on it, you've got the DeFi projects here, one of my favorite, Orca. Here's Serum, of course, we've talked about on our show many times. There's Mango Markets, leading lending protocols, Frankium, which is a one, and I like Solend as well. And then you've got the NFT marketplaces with Metaplex, Solana Art, and so on. And then there's Magic Eden, which we showed earlier with the Bears. The point being is these are not just kind of ho-hum dApps. These are projects that are truly well-developed, well-funded, and well-managed. And anytime that you have an infrastructure that is building that much solidity, then, no pun intended, you've got something there. And I think the fact that we're going to see more and more of this is going to be huge for Solana. Here's Arweave, of course, their partnership, the Solana blockchain, the partnership of decentralized permanent data storage for the solution and of the ledger data. This is a big deal to me because I follow Arweave heavily. I'm a big data geek, so I understand the importance of data and storage of that. The blockchain is no different than Web 2 and Web 1 and kind of the evolution, probably more so important in the future. Even though it is decentralized, the ability to be able to combine that and compile data at the level and speed in which we're going to need to do this in the future as we start to roll out the advancement of Web 3. Arweave is going to be one of the projects I think is going to be flowing well. Here's Solend right here. Again, this is a algorithmic decentralized protocol for lending and borrowing, much like what you saw with Maple. And if you look at Solend and just some of the things that they're doing, I follow, and this is just a tip for you guys, you should be following a lot of these projects, whether it's on Twitter or you get behind their Discord, or maybe you read their blogs if you go over onto their Substack or over to their Medium. Get into them because this will help you build your research portfolio and understanding. Once you've identified projects you're interested in, then you can dive deep into those. And Solend does a really good job about sharing information. Where are they right now on the chart? So you can see right now on the 1 day actually up. So moving quite a bit actually from yesterday at $1.76. We got a nice pump right there to $1.80. But over time, if I look at the 1 year on this one is at its bottom. So again, this is a lot of these kinds of projects, and we talk about this on the show. Many people go, oh my God, that's terrible. This is exactly where millionaires are made. When you look at projects that have had massive flies on all-time highs, and or they see an ecosystem, as long as there's not a competitor that's starting to invade the space, if they're still holding strong, the likelihood is that if you can get them at bargain basement, now, not always will this work. In many cases, the way my strategy works is when I go after projects like this, I'm waiting for that bargain basement price. I'll go in and I'll spread this out across a variety of different ecosystem plays, and some of which we've won big time on. And that's an opportunity I think you have to look at around the Solana ecosystem. Another one, of course, is Serum. Serum right here, high-speed order book based on non-custodial DEX, which I think we're going to see more and more on non-custodials. And if you look at where Serum is also flowing, Again, I just would say follow again a lot of what they're doing within their announcements. But Serum right here, you can kind of see their one-day popping also. But if you look at the all-time, or let's go back to the year, also had that high right here back in September at $12, and now Serum trading right at $2. So this is a good example of where you can spot these really good deals, and is this the time to get these bargain basement opportunities? Now, many people are looking at the stock market right now in the same way. We're seeing 80% fall-offs in the stock market, which I'll do a video on this talking about why the volatility in today's stock market is probably equal to or maybe even greater than that in which we're seeing here in the crypto markets, which I would argue with almost any trader out there, is that the market has become too mature and it's still very, very early. So it's only upside from here for all of these. So again, Solana is definitely a play that I'm looking at very strong. And as I said, when you look at back to the sentiment numbers right now, just slightly up here. So I'm really interested to see what the Friday drop is going to be on Solana for whether or not this gets a little bit more pump, or if we start to see some activity, even though Bitcoin has had a little bit of a bounce off the 38, we'll check and see, because Bitcoin is still trending down. Matter of fact, I want to take a look at Bitcoin as of Wednesday, and you can kind of see our downtrend that we started picking up last week, early last week, when it was around 42, and we had our downtrends pointing in this direction. So there was some good buying opportunities there on Bitcoin as well. Listen, if you guys are listening over on the podcast right now, make sure and give us some stars over there. We do appreciate that. But really, the place to catch all of this, along with the charts and many of the stuff we drop when it comes to analysis, is right here on the YouTube channel. It's the best place. It's the only place you're going to catch it. And it's also the only place you can get the link to join the Diamond Circle, which gives you our free emails. A couple of times a week, we drop not only our content, some of our AMAs, and then occasionally I'll do a private video that we drop into our CPI member only group, which we've just launched that. So actually, I think it launches on Friday this week. We'll have our new private video section on my inside trades, what I'm doing, how I manage some things, some of my plays on NFTs. I'm doing a lot around that space, so make sure and jump into all of that good stuff. If you want to reach me out on Twitter, it's @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.